On this episode of Fireside Talks, we're talking about getting out of survival mode and into thriving. Welcome to Empowered Kids TV Fireside Talks. This is the place where we come and we take our capes off as parents. We find loving, non judgmental space in this beautiful community, and we get to be inspired by coaches each and every week. Today is no exception. We've got an amazing coach joining us. Sarah Parks is a mother, workshop facilitator, and accredited legacy coach. She specializes in helping parents create more balance and harmony in their lives. Sarah is passionate about helping parents learn to communicate more effectively with their kids so that they're open to listening and sharing throughout their childhood. Sarah helps parents create family and financial freedom fast. And you can find out all about Sarah at spcoaching.co.uk. Sarah, welcome to Fireside Talks.
Hi, it's such a pleasure to be here.
I'm very excited. And I just want to remind everybody, if you're new to our community, be sure to join in because we have such a whole host of resources that you can tap into. A great place to start would be our YouTube channel. Subscribe there because there's a wealth of information that you can draw from as you go through your parenting journey. Tonight, Sarah's going to talk to us about getting out of survival mode and into thriving. Let's dive into that.
Yes. So I'm so excited to talk to you tonight about this topic. And it's something that, is really at the forefront for me at the moment, particularly as we've started a new year. We, are living through a global pandemic. And people have had different responses to this. And I know that when like me, you have children, that there's so much that we've needed to do and to balance, working, homeschooling, and managing all the emotions that have been coming up. There's so many emotions that come up, and we're in this kind of pressure cooker kind of situation. And there's so much uncertainty around that it's so easy to be in that surviving mode rather than coming from a place of thriving. Now, tonight, I'm going to talk more about that and some of the ways that we can key back into coming from that place of thriving rather than surviving. And, what I see, some of the places that people are in, and I was just reading a post from somebody today who was saying, they've been trying to be patient all day, and their child flicked some water at them when they were in the bath, and it just tipped them over the edge, and they ended up screaming at them, and then the child ended up out of the bath and going to bed crying, and then they were really upset and felt like a terrible mom, and I think the first thing is that we are in extraordinary times. We are living and parenting and homeschooling and working through a crisis situation. So it's so important for us to be kind to ourselves. That's the first thing, is to be gentle and compassionate, because so often we can be so much more compassionate with our children than we would be with ourselves. And in those moments to think about, what would I say to my best friend? What would I say to somebody who was telling me what has just happened in their household? What would my advice be to them? Because we can so often just be so harsh with ourselves, and beat ourselves up because we're not living up to this image of some kind of perfect parent. And, we've got to cut ourselves some slack. This is a crisis. This is a pandemic, right?
I absolutely love this because I think this, especially for moms, So not to sound sexist, but especially for moms, we
Mhm,
struggle with giving ourselves the same grace that
mhm.
we would even give to a stranger, not just our best friend, but even to a stranger. We
Yeah.
struggle to give ourselves the same grace. And a lot of people, I think, put taking care of themselves and being kind to themselves in some kind of bubble of this spa retreat box. So taking care of myself must mean a massage and a pedicure and facials, and not just the 2 seconds it takes to put your hand on your heart to say, oh, that was hard.
Mhm.
Ah, that stings. Just those 2 minutes, those 2 seconds, just to soothe yourself and to kind of love on yourself is really as important as any luxurious spa day could ever be.
It's such a good point, isn't it? Because we think of self care as something like painting our nails or going on a spa day or something like that. And actually, self care can be making sure we eat properly, making sure we eat, regularly, making sure we get enough sleep, we go to bed, making sure that, like you say, we take that space for ourselves, that we love on ourselves, that we give ourselves some appreciation, I have a daily gratitude practice. So this is one of the things that can really help to get out of surviving and into thriving is having something like a gratitude practice really helps me to connect with those great things about the day. But not only that, but also the things that I have done, acknowledging myself, giving myself a bit of a pat on the back
Yep.
that, I fed my kids, I got them through doing that math stuff. That's just like, what is that? You know,
I love that because you know what? This is the only job where nobody's going to come with a medal,
I mean,
with a job well done. Like nobody's coming. So you've got to be the one to pat yourself on the back.
absolutely. So, really having that gratitude and that appreciation. And another thing that gratitude is so great for as well is when we can feel disconnected from our children. Because sometimes, and you might be in the situation where things have been so hard for so long that you you love your child, right? You know that you would do anything for them, but actually don't feel like you like them. You feel a bit disconnected from
Yep.
that experience of love. Intellectually you love them, but
Yep.
you're not experiencing it because this is the fifth time today that they've had a massive blow up and you are worn out. You've got nothing left in the tank and you're tired
Yeah.
and you just want it to stop. And we can feel in those times disconnected from our love with our children. And so, it's really important. That compassion for ourselves is really important, but also that gratitude, remembering something about your child that you love, something
Mhm.
about your child that they did that was nice today, not just when they were winding up their brother or sister, or because all of those things, they stack and stack and stack and stack, right? um and they can be at the forefront. So having part of our gratitude to think of what's one lovely thing that they did, something kind they did today, something you noticed today. And if you can't think of anything from that day, think of a time when
Mm.
they did something kind or compassionate, or that you remember that aspect of them. Because sometimes we can get a bit, just seeing one aspect of them because it's so hard, sometimes.
I love that. And I think it's important sometimes for us to take that step back and
Uh-huh.
just see the bigger picture. I wanted to also share one thing that I've been pondering with regards to self compassion as well as we talk here. I think sometimes, and I remember like I was really thinking, when did I first stumble across this notion? Sometimes we could compare our pain to someone else's and go, well, I have no reason. And look at what they're going through. I
Mhm.
have no reason to complain. And in that, we dismiss our pain as if it's frivolous
Mhm.
because it's not as bad as somebody else's pain. And now I know for sure, like one of the things that I think I've grown to know for sure is that anything you push away, it doesn't go away. It just goes down and waits for its turn to come back up, right?
Finds a way.
It finds a way to come back up. And I think it's so important for us to recognize that our pain is our pain. And it
Mhm.
doesn't get to be compared to somebody else's yardstick of suffering. But
Yeah.
if we can tune in and still be able to recognize that pain for as big or as small or as frivolous as we may think it is, just recognize it for the fact that it's something that's coming up for us and
Mhm.
bring that compassion to it. That can just make the space that can allow you to have that extra 5% of patience that you need for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. When I was thinking about this topic of, getting out of survival mode into thriving, I was thinking about the work that I do. I do it around kind of 5 pillars of transformation that I use in the work that I do. And the first one is love. That's the first pillar is love. And that's what we've been talking about in this compassion and connecting when we get disconnected from our love, reconnecting up. And another of the pillars that I have is legacy. I call it a legacy life. Like, and when when we're caught up in the day to day, we don't see the bigger picture, right? When we're battling with getting them to clean their teeth and getting them to make sure they wash or get outside and get some fresh air. These you haven't been out all day, and
That was
all
mine today.
yeah, exactly. All of those things, which can be wearing and things that as parents we're needing to do right on a day-to-day basis. And of course, another of my pillars is that my how-to pillar is practical skills, and I share practical skills around those things, like how to help them cooperate or get outside and get some fresh air, ways in which we can encourage them. So that's the kind of around the practical pillar. But this legacy life that I talk about, and I've been talking about more and more lately as well, because I think I love this bit. It's huge. It's kind of the vision that you have for your family. Like,
Absolutely.
what do you really want for your family? What is the vision that you had when you thought, yeah, I want to be a parent, I want to have a baby, I want to have a person? What is your vision for them? What was your vision for how you wanted to, how you want to parent, like the kind of parent you want to be? I expect most people who are watching this will want to be parenting in a respectful way, because that's why you're here.
Yes.
That's why you're attracted to this community, and why people are attracted to the community that I have in my How to Talk So Kids Will Listen UK group. People come to that because they are the kind of parents who want to parent in a respectful way. That's part of their legacy. That's part of their goals, their vision, their mission for their family. Like, and I know for me personally, it's about my vision for my family was to have my children grow up with some of the things I didn't have. For me, it was about breaking a cycle in my family of kind of neglect and abuse that is in my parents' upbringing. They had a really difficult upbringings, and they weren't equipped when they had me and my sister. They weren't equipped with, they hadn't had respectful parenting skills modeled from their parents. You know, they didn't have those skills and were dealing with their own trauma, you know. And what I know to be true when you have children is that nobody really tells you that. Actually, I always say to people that it feels like it's the biggest, longest transformational program that you've enrolled on that you didn't know you were enrolling on when you got pregnant, right? You had no idea. Surprise, surprise. And it goes on for the whole of your life until you die. From when you get pregnant, there's this growth, this constant growth, and things that you are going to do. And for me, that started with pushing a person out of a small hole, right? It's like, oh my goodness. Okay, that's something, right? So it starts with, you know, doing things that you were just like, wow, I did that. And, you know, for me, my journey into parenthood wasn't easy. You know, my first child was stillborn, and I, you know, so I was a parent of a dead child. That's not how I envisaged my parenting journey starting. With grief, with loss, with all of these emotions, and you know, and I'm sure lots of people watching may have had a similar experience, or had a journey where it was difficult to conceive for many, many years. And, you know, it's not always an easy path to even getting there in the first place. So it can feel like having climbed a mountain just to get pregnant and give birth to a healthy child, right?
Yeah.
And we have no idea that that's really just the beginning of this massive journey. And it's triggering. Yeah, it brings up in us the loss. It brings up in us what we did or didn't have in our childhoods. It brings up you know, those things that you hadn't got round to dealing with. Woof, they're in your face. Because our children mirror back to us, you know, what we're putting out. You know, I mean, I'm sure you've been here where you've heard your very words coming out of a little person's mouth, and you've gone, whoa. Mirrored back at you, right?
Yep.
So it's, you know, it's hugely challenging and triggering and humbling and joyful. And, you know, there's so many, you know, there's amazing, yeah, it's a roller coaster, amazing positive feelings as well. And so, you know, for me, this legacy for me is my vision for my children was to have, you know, most people, for them to have a happy childhood, for them to get to be children, to grow, feel safe, to feel loved, to feel cared for, to be able to have a voice, to be able to grow in confidence and feel like anything is possible in the world and in their lives. You know, that is what, you know, I really want for my children. That's my vision for how I parent, and, you know, how they grow. So it's having an idea of what is that for you? What, you know, what is it you want for your children? And we can get caught up in, well, we just want them to do as we say, you know, just like stop arguing back.
Absolutely.
And actually that bigger picture, when they are pushing those boundaries, because part of our job is to hold loving, firm boundaries, right? It's not, and I think people who want to parent in a respectful way can think they've got to be patient all the time and listen all the time. And actually part of our job, our children's job is to push boundaries. So we need to hold boundaries. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of their job. We need to hold a loving, firm boundary. And it's not like having a dictatorship. That's like old school, with punishment and what have you. But it's about having. But we do need to hold a loving, firm boundary, and hold that with compassion and love. So it's that nuance there. Sorry, did you want to say something, Nicole?
I was just I was just thinking how sometimes that space of holding a boundary can in our minds feel like it will be the beginning of conflict.
Uh-huh.
But once it's done in that love and respectful way, in my experience, it becomes a safety net for kids. Like they
Uh-huh.
know, almost like in a trampoline, you've got that net. Well,
Yeah,
I'm bouncing and I'm gonna bounce into the net, and that's gonna be fun, and we'll see how much I can crash into the net. But I know this net holds me safe.
yeah, yeah. I love that analogy of the net, because it is, then they can free reign, they can be themselves, they can push against that and they can bounce off that, but they know they're held. And what happens when we don't hold a boundary and just think, well, we can just let them do anything, right? They actually end up not feeling safe.
Yeah.
They end up not feeling safe, and they can end up, it in it can fuel these big emotions that can come up for them, because when they don't feel safe and they don't feel held, these big emotions can come out, because they do need that. They do need us to hold that. And I love that. Such a great analogy, actually. I love that. So being clear on what our vision is for our family is I just think that is so important for having that bigger picture. Can help us when we're struggling in the day-to-day, like, why am I, because sometimes we can feel like, why am I putting myself through this? Why am I doing this? What is the point? And the point is that, the reason why we're not ruling with an iron fist, which might seem like it, surely that would just be easier. A parent was sharing in my group today that they realized that there's no shortcuts. Like, what seems like the long way round is actually the short route.
Yeah.
Because you can think, oh, well, just do as I say, boom, conflict, boom. Everybody's like clashing and raging, fuel to the fire, rush, but actually what can seem like the long way round, actually it collapses the timeline for the thing that we want to happen.
And the more you do it, the faster you build
Actually,
momentum
the
in that
faster it happens.
direction.
Yeah. And the more facility we get with it, and it is through using some simple skills. It really is, and getting some facility with going through having this toolkit. I help parents develop like a toolkit of skills that they have there, and once you get familiar with that toolkit, you can be using those skills to support. So that's I think I mentioned, the 5 pillars of transformation. One of mine is this how-to pillar, the practical skills of, how to do things, what to say, and those practical things. But still, on this legacy part as well, something that's really come up for me with the work that I've been doing since the pandemic started, actually. When the pandemic started, I went from mostly doing my business in person to online. And I had resisted doing my business online for a long time. And I had people like, oh, I much prefer in person and all of this stuff. And then suddenly there was no option. There was no choice. It was online or nothing, right? And so I worked really hard with doing my business online and putting my courses online and things to help with these big emotions. I've got a program called Be a Great Mum and Still Be You, where I take people through a journey over 12 weeks. It's like a group coaching program where I take people through all these sort of foundational skills and building on those foundations and through all the pillars that I work through. And one of the things that came up during this time as well was to create financial stability as well, financial freedom for myself. And I was really focusing on supporting people around the parenting. But then I started, basically, I ended up creating an online business that works, right? That is profitable and that has created financial stability for my family. And so I always find it interesting how sometimes my inner self, like my subconscious self, brings things to me before my conscious self has caught up, right? So, and before I've always done a combination of coaching, parenting and some business coaching, and some business clients started coming to me, clients who want to have an online business and need to create this financial freedom, often women, and this is one of the things that women are incredible. I believe that mums are the glue that hold families together. That they do all the things. They're often running an amazing business and yet not appreciating themselves, not valuing themselves. And I'll speak to women and they're like, well, I do have this thing and I have helped people with this and the other. I'm like, wow, that is amazing, how you're helping people. Oh, and I have written a book. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, you did mention that. It's just like, they're not like, oh, yeah, look at me. I've done this, I've done that. They so humble often, right? And yet, I've come across women who are struggling, to pay the bills because actually that thing of not fully valuing who you are and the transformation that you bring into the world ends up keeping people small. And, I often work with coaches and therapists and, who have incredible transformation that they support people to bring into the world. But they're like massively undercharging for it. They're not valuing themselves and their transformation. So I've been doing more of that work as well. And part of having a legacy life, for me, and I think for many people, is to have financial stability. It's really hard for us to, it's really hard when we haven't got the basics met. Like we know we feel secure, we can pay the mortgage or we can pay our rent. That is really important part of living your legacy life.
Let's dive a little deeper there, Sarah, because I think if going back to the topic of tonight, how we move from that survival mode into that space of thriving. For a lot of families, this pandemic has brought up financial security and not about luxury, about necessity, about paying the rent and putting food on the table. So if we were taking a step back and looking at it from a legacy perspective, let's walk some of our families through from that place of feeling like, I don't know where the next rent is going to come from. How do you in that space create the clarity to think about the legacy so that you can get the next best steps to go forward?
So, I think in terms of, so I'm working with a woman at the moment that I've just started working with, who, and she's a coach, right? And she's struggling. And so it's really to look at, what is it you need right now? Like, what do you need? And getting some clarity around exactly what you need. Because sometimes people, when they're in difficulties financially as well, we can bury our head in the sand and it can end up bigger than what it
Mhm.
actually is. So getting actually some clarity, what do you actually need to pay your rent, to put food on the table, to pay the bills? Like, what is that monthly amount that you need? So to know those figures is really important, a really good starting point. And I know, and not be scared to look at that, you know, and bury our heads in the sand. You know, that is the first starting point to look at, you know, what do you need for that? And then the next is like, what do I have? Like, what resources do I have available? Like, if you've got a business, what products do you have that can get you to that goal the quickest? What is going to provide the most value for the people that you serve? So if you're a coach like this lady, what's going to provide the most value for the people that you serve, right? And what is going to bring you the most joy and profit in providing that value? So Helen Pritchard, who does lots of stuff around kind of attracting clients through LinkedIn, she talks about this value, joy, profit triangle, is to really look at what so what's going to bring the most value, most joy and profit, because it's not just about doing things for the money. It really isn't. It's about also knowing and getting that you can do what you love and make money from it. Like, you have knowledge, you have stuff that you can share that people want and people need, whether that is that you're a coach, whether that is you're a therapist, whether that is you help people with their technical stuff, right? You know, tech is not my thing. I will happily pay somebody to do my website. I will happily pay somebody to do those things because it's not my jam.
Mm.
And if it's your jam and you love doing that, great. There are people who will pay you for that. So it's...
And you know what I want to say there, Sarah? I want to say that that's related to just about any skill you have.
Yeah.
And to put that in perspective, I know a little girl who wrote a book on how to do sleepovers for preteens.
Uh-huh.
And is making enough to support her family just off of her book and the follow-up courses that she did. And
Wow.
so it's just about recognizing that the knowledge you have is valuable to somebody else who is
Yeah.
looking for that information and being able to tap into that no matter where you are.
Absolutely, it really is. I mean, one of the things that I'm doing a guest spot actually this coming Saturday at the Audacious Women's Festival.
Oh,
It's a great name, isn't it? We love it. And that
awesome.
is about helping people connect with their vision, helping people connect with what it is they really want to be doing, and what it is that, you know, is going to help them get to that legacy life, and around the kind of money blocks that people can have, right? Because there are quite often there's old programming, old thoughts, old feelings about our ability, about what we can or can't do, and it's partly about opening up our minds
Mm.
to the possibilities that are open, that are out there for us, and that everybody, you know, I believe there's a book in everybody. Everybody's got a course in them.
Yeah.
Everybody's got knowledge, things that they can teach people that somebody else doesn't know how to do, that they can put out there, especially right now in this day and age where everything is online and people are now more than ever used to consuming online as well, because that's what's changed in the pandemic. I had people who are like, oh no, I don't want to do an online course, who are like, that's the only option, I'm there, I'm doing it, you know. So it's there are opportunities there, and, you know, getting a little bit of support. This is something that I did that got me from a place of struggle, because in my business I was in a place of struggle at the beginning of this pandemic, and I was like, something has to change. I was in that place where I was thinking, I'm not sure how I'm going to pay the bills next month. So I'm talking from experience. I did not like that feeling. I did not like being in that place where I don't know how I'm going to do this. And of course, I had all this stuff. I had all this knowledge. I had all this wealth and I just needed to focus. I needed to focus. I needed to hone in, and what I needed to do at the time was invest to get some support. So I invested at a time when I had no money, and I just went, okay. I took that leap of faith. I made that investment, and in somebody who's already done what you want to do, right? In somebody who's got to where you want to be. And I've done that with myself, with clients. So, I have a client who in January did like a 6K month, and before, like in a similar, at the beginning of the pandemic, was similarly in a place where they were struggling to pay the bills. They didn't know how they were going to do it. Their relationship had broken down. And I know that's happened for a lot of people during this pandemic. Yeah. They just didn't know how they were going to do it. And, she had like in December a 7K month and a 6K month in January, which is just like night and day from where she was before. Now she's confident she can support her children. Now she's confident that, she has the resources to look after her family and building a business that she loves, and that massively excites me, because it's not just, the other thing about it is that it's that thing of supporting people create their family legacy, create that financial stability, but also the work that they're doing in the world just lights me up, because they are helping people have, a better quality of life. So it's like their wins are my wins, by supporting them have a thriving business. I'm helping them reach more people.
And then think of all the lives you get to touch.
And all the lives. It's like, I always think of it as all these heart lights, all of these heartbeats, and each mum that I support, there's a whole lot of heartbeats around them, of those children, of their, and their clients. And I love that. And so that, for me, that's part of my legacy, is to empower women. And the bigger mission for me, or the bigger vision outside of my own family and supporting my family and running a thriving business, is to help to create a legacy of feminine social change, so that our children can grow up in a world where feminine and masculine qualities are equally valued. That is something that I am really passionate about, and that is about empowering women. It's about empowering mums. It really is, to know how amazing you are, what incredible skills you have, what you have to offer, even if you've been in a relationship with somebody who's been telling you that you're nothing, you're worthless, you can't do anything. So yeah, that's something that so that's the bigger picture for me in terms of helping families, is this balance, this harmony because it starts in our families. That balance of that equality, it starts in our homes, and our children learn that from what's going on in our homes with, the parents in each and every home, and that family dynamic. So, I'm really passionate about that. So, from starting really focusing, and this is the other thing, right? The thing that's going to get you to that, out of that place of struggle and surviving to thriving as well, is to focus, is to choose one thing, just for now, not forever. Just choose one thing to focus on. Because I'm quite a kind of multi-passionate person, and that's one of the reasons why my business wasn't doing as well as it could be, is because I was trying to do all the things, right? and I needed to just focus. I just needed to focus on one thing that I help people, one person with, like one thing for one person that I help them with, before I spread out. And I've got, different courses and different ways in which I support people, but it took for me to focus in to get things flowing and get things working and get out of that place of struggle, into thriving and having, the bills easily covered now, so it's, and having extra to pay off the debt that I'd been accruing from not, because I'm sure there's lots of people who'd be in that position for a while where you're building up debt and you're building up debt and building, and you're maxing out credit cards and things like that. So, you need that surplus to then do that repairing work.
Absolutely.
So so my business kind of went from honing in on focusing just on the parenting to really opening that up to this legacy life, to the parenting and that financial freedom part and the interweaving of those, because they are interconnected.
And if we look at the biggest stressors in our home, it's the relationships and it's the finances. And it's foolish to think one doesn't influence the other, right? If you're in survival mode from a financial perspective, you're not the best parent. You're not the best you, because you're stressed out. Your brain is somewhere else. You don't have the focus and the patience and the mindfulness that you need to be the best version of you. So it's all interlinked.
Absolutely, it really is. And what I do when I work with people is that I start with where they're at. Some parents I start working with, and the thing that is in the forefront is, they've got a child who is having multiple meltdowns every day. They're, it feels like it's a real crisis and they need to get on top of that. And, maybe they're hurting other people in the family, they're hurting themselves. That is the starting point. It's like, what is the glass ball? What is the glass ball that you cannot drop, that you need to get sorted now? It's that hair on fire situation, isn't it? What is it that you need to sort that thing out with that particular child right now? That's the start. Or is it that you really need to be bringing in the money to pay the rent and the bills and what have you? Let's get that sorted out, and then we can move on to the parenting side. So, I love to work with people over like a 12-week period or a 6-month period or year, So those are kind of the one-to-one packages that I have are over those periods of time, so that we can, sort one aspect of life out, and then we can do the other, out of the family freedom or the financial freedom.
I love the conversation, really diving deeply into legacy. So I just want to say thanks for bringing that for us tonight, because I think it really helps to give the clarity as to what you need to focus on next, right? When everything feels like it's on fire, which is at the minute for a lot of us, it's which fire do I put out first? And I think that step back and looking at the legacy really helps us to identify, okay, what do I need? A hose for everything, so I give everything a little quick spray? Or do I really need to kind of focus and put it on one fire? Because if I take care of that fire, all the rest will kind of simmer down. And I think
exactly, it's like all the spray goes on the other fire anyway. Like you put that one out,
and
the spray that goes on the other fire, because everything's interconnected, like you say.
I love it.
So it has a massive impact, sorting. So in some ways, like if you just like, I don't know which one to start with, just start. If you don't know which one to start with, just start.
Just get going. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing this with us tonight. Absolute pleasure having you. And I think a lot for families to take away at a time when it is feeling like we've had enough. We've had enough, and the pressure is on. And for a lot of families, it's difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So for me, this was a really important conversation to say, look, there are people that are finding their way, which means there is a way. And all you need to do is have that bit of perspective so that you can see what's the right way for your family. So
Yeah. And, if people are wanting to connect with, some of the support that I have, I know in March, beginning of March, I've got a working from home with kids support series coming up in my free group. It's called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen UK. So, and that's completely free. So people can join in with that and get those things sorted out in terms of working from home with your kids. And getting those aspects sorted out for yourself over like a little 5-day support series that is. And I think I did mention that I'm, for people who are trying to work out what is my vision, for my family, what is it that I'm, that bigger picture. I have this, it's called Dare to Fly workshop coming up on Saturday, where you really connect with what that bigger goal is, what that goal is. That vision, that mission that you have for your life and for your family. So that's a great way of kind of connecting with that. And of course, people can always book a free call with me to have a look at what is going on right now for you. What are you struggling with? And, how I can support you with that over. I mean, one of the big things for me, because I work with groups, but with one-to-one, you get the transformation so much more quickly, because it's so tailored, so
remind everybody of the URL, Sarah.
Oh yeah, so you can connect with me through my website, which is it's spcoaching.co.uk. So spcoaching.co.uk. And you can also connect with me through my Facebook page or group, which is How to Talk So Kids Will Listen UK. So those are the places where you can connect with me, and you can always book a free call to find out more about how I can help you. So yeah,
thank you so much for joining us, Sarah.
Fab, thank you so much for having me on. It's been such a pleasure and an honor tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We're all about sharing and supporting this village. So if you found value in this episode, be sure to share it with your family and friends. And remember, this is a weekly show. So if you haven't already, subscribe and hit that bell icon so that you'll be notified of our next episode. As we always say in the village, you're just one connection away. With love and gratitude, empower us. Until next time.